And we're live with John Duarte. Jonathan Duarte has been
Yeah.
on my pod about 2 years ago, John, right? Something
Yeah.
like that.
Yep.
It's been a cool pod. I remembered it, and John's personality is always like up to date with the latest tools. We're talking about the AI and agents prior to this. Calls the CEO of GoHire. So he's a leading authority on high volume recruiting automation and conversational AI. GoHire provides and John provides the tools for HR recruiters to hire more qualified applicants faster. So got a bunch of clients like you, John. It's still a cool industry, but very competitive. So how do you distinguish yourself with all of these AI tools nowadays?
Yeah, I think like AI and HR, there's a lot of companies coming out and anyone can build an agent at this point, and stitch stuff together. But it's really, and I think this is where actually all comes down to is integrating into the existing tech stack. If you can't do that, then you're really looking at individual users. The cost of client acquisition and the ACVs on those are going to be terrible. So your business will never work because the cost of maintenance to get somebody up live, do the R&D to build the stuff. And if you're not on a multi-year contract with a company who's doing, you got to do, if you're going to do this stuff, it's got to be thousands of dollars worth of business, or you're shooting yourself in the foot. So if you're not building end-to-end solutions that are going to fit into the enterprise, then you don't have a business, you have a hobby.
And is there still a talent war nowadays? And for who are we talking about? The 100x super coder type of person, or hiring a consultant that comes with like his army of 10 agents? Like who should I recruit nowadays?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So the other side too is most everyone in like agents in the HR AI space, they're mostly targeting hard to fill technical roles. Um, and then you'll have like biomedical and engineering, other roles that are hard to find, but most of them are really just kind of targeting um, the technical stuff. But if you look across the spectrum of all kind of hiring, from hourly, retail to manufacturing to even nurses that are hourly, there's still use cases in every way to automate those processes. So you're seeing the tools um, evolve across multiple platforms. But as you said, like if I could hire an individual who could automate steps for me, I think those people who know AI, know how to write prompts, know how to use a Make or a Zapier or an N8N, and know your technical stack, those people are probably worth more than some of the engineers that work at your company because they could use your existing stack and tell you, hey, and from a baseline standpoint, if you're not looking at a problem that is going to solve, like make save your company 50,000 a year, it's probably not worth playing around with. And that should be
Right.
the bottom line for anyone. If it's not, if you're just trying to solve something that's like, oh, hey, this is annoying, but it's not worth 50,000 to you because there's a cost of maintenance on this stuff. So you've got to look at, is the problem big enough that it deserves this level of support? And it may not be one, but you have 10 problems worth 50 grand. And if they're similar, then the 50 grand may make sense. I don't know what your number is going to be, but it's not a simple, hey, I've got this kind of problem and it happens occasionally. It's like, we need to hire 100 people and we're doing the exact same thing and it's going to cost me a bunch, or we're going to lose candidates. 50 hiring 100 people is worth 50 grand if you can automate it, because you just need to suck out 20% of that in gains and you've paid for the code.
Right. And yeah, tell me about the future. Would most workers be freelancers or be managed by one big agentic corporation that would auto place people in the right job in which they would add value? What is the future of HR here? Because I certainly think that most of us would become freelancers in a future. We would spend zero time looking for jobs or contracts. I think most of jobs would be contracts as well, as like do this or do that. And I also think that we would come with our agents, right? Like, hey,
Hmm.
here's I'm Charles. I'm using ChatGPT 11 agentic and Claude
XYZ.
7.8, right? So
Yeah.
people would look at that and be like, oh shit, this guy's serious. He's prompted his agents the right way, and that's who I would hire, not like my skills necessarily. What are your thoughts on that?
Um, I could see it happening. It's not going to be the majority of the knowledge worker workspace, and that's because human resources is still about culture. It's still about humans fitting into the loop. So you might, and there's so many deep fake stuff interviews that are going on now too, that you find like, yes, you can work from home, but that doesn't add value. Getting the output in a business is definitely value number one, but it's working with the other teammates to get the value. And it's not just about the technical side. So from a process side, if you're a process engineer working in HR or in recruiting or in any area of the business, yeah, you could hire Charles with his N8N and his Claude, whatever, and you don't really care as long as Charles is still going to communicate effectively to understand the business process, because you still have to understand the business because every business is different. So I still think, you're still going to need people to pick and pack. You're still going to need somebody to answer the phone on a level 2 support. In the next 5 years, maybe that's some of that stuff's going to, decrease over time and maybe much more rapidly is my guess, but we'll see.
And tell me about these deep fake stuffs. I haven't double clicked on that. Like, are they like legit good scalable scam? Do they actually make money? Do people still know what's can they differentiate between a deep fake and a real interviewer? How scalable is that
Um,
scam?
right now, we've seen these, and there's one post flying around on LinkedIn. If anyone want to search it, deep fake interview on LinkedIn, um, where someone was on a video interview, and the recruiter's like, "This is just weird. Like, everything just seems weird and off." And so they just asked. They were smart enough, and they asked the candidate to say, "Would you mind just waving in front of the camera?" And they couldn't do it, and then they and then they turned off. So it's actually just an interesting thing. But I think what we're also seeing is, one thing I just wrote a LinkedIn post about it is, in the US, robocalls are illegal. So people were like, hey, yeah, we'll build all these voice bots that will be able to make calls to your prospects, and you can get sued for $500 to $1,500 per incident. So every phone call you made, $1,500. That is not going to last in the U.S. So, but you have all these other robocalls doing it from offshore. But if you can actually get to the company, that company's underwater, and all that owner's possessions are gone, because they're
Right,
probably not a corporation anyways.
right. Let's get to the hot stuff.
Yeah.
How has tariffs affected your business right now, and how is it going to affect the job market?
Um, Nothing yet, except possible growth for the U.S. because we have a large manufacturing group of people, everything from a lot of cars manufacturing and pipe metal workers and steel and aluminum, and those guys, essentially that's what we're tariffs to protect those and to grow those businesses. Those teams are already looking for people. They were before, but now there's more interest. But I think the problem with overall in tariffs, it's not a quick fix, because you can't put up a billion-dollar company and infrastructure in months. That takes years. So it's not like U.S. Steel is going to just become, everyone's going in the U.S. is going to buy U.S. Steel all of a sudden. We're going to have to pay the tariff because we don't have the production.
Right. Interesting. And what other trends could be like disruptive? Because AI, for example, I don't think we've seen AI starting to really slash jobs in the market, but I'm pretty sure that's inevitable. What have you seen with that AI adoption trend, and how do you think this is going to affect the job market the next 5, 10 years?
Yeah, I'd say you know, even the smartest folks from um, Amazon and Google have stated this on multiple podcasts. Like I think it's Ugg from Amazon. We are going to see a major shift in workforce, and I think the thing that we're concerned about when I talk to CHROs or chief human resources officers are how are you educating and implementing AI and training your existing workforce for, because there's going to be winners in those workforces that know how to write prompts, know how to automate things, and are you giving them instructions and training so they can learn? Because it's better to keep employees that know your business that can just help you automate it versus hiring somebody new who doesn't know the business, and you have to train them on the business to get the automation. It's better to take their brain knowledge that they've already got and teach them how to automate it or work with the team to automate. So I think that's the short run is what's going to happen. But I also see that as things progress and we automate a lot of these manual tasks, like in HR, if and Charles, I know you're CEO and a founder and whatnot, but the typical person, if you get an email or a phone call from HR, it usually means you're in trouble, right? Like something's wrong. They're not like so that can get changed if if HR was communicating and not actually doing a lot of manual processes. They could actually be the human resource department rather than the policy and compliance department, and they can help you get the information you need or solve problems. But right now, they've been the de facto compliance and bad guy department, and I think that we can see them become how to leverage our workforce department in a better way. That's what I'm all about, trying to teach HR leadership to take a hold of this kind of leverage AI so that they're responsible for the workforce. If they can leverage the workforce to do better, they're part of that solution.
Right. How's the company grown since the last time we spoke, and what challenges have you faced?
Yeah, it's different. I think in the case of, we're still doing a lot of the same things in the high volume space with recruiting. There's a lot of competition coming in the market, of course, but I think where it's going is these agents of record that can do full end-to-end solutions, and or agents that can really be an assistant across multiple platforms. So we don't see that much yet, because you and I can play with 8 and 8 and make to understand some of these things, but the average employee who's non-technical is not going to be in 8 and 8 trying to figure out JSON to connect calendars and stuff like that. So those late adopters are still going to need a tool, but that tool could use the back end of whatever platform you're on. If it's connected to, like, I see a future where, and this is kind of like my big vision I've learned in the last, literally last couple of days, which is we have things like Workday as our ERP. We've got SAP, we've got Salesforce. We have all these tools, but not a single one of those tools is the software of record across the entire enterprise. So there is no one software program that the company uses. And the problem with a lot of software has been, over the last, say, decade, companies and IT teams have been trying to slim down the number of tools because of the cost, the SaaS maintenance contracts that no one's using, the overhead. I actually think what's going to happen is we might have a proliferation of tools, but instead of just having training people on use the tool, we have agents that can get to the data. Like if I want a report from Salesforce, why do I have to know how to build a report in Salesforce to do it? Why not ask the agent to say, this is the info I want? So I foresee that happening in every SaaS model, and all the SaaS teams are going to build their own walled gardens on their agents, but that's not going to work because no one's going to want to learn how to use every single agent. So you're going to have a singular agent that can talk to any agent.
Interesting. And that would be like a YC company that would build that, like a single agent API to connect with all these other agent
Yep.
API. And would
Yep. You're
that be
talking
the
to
next like
the guy who's going to build it.
next $1 trillion company?
Yeah, billion is right, because
No, trillion.
yeah, it's like you don't want to train your workforce. You're like, think of the onboarding it takes to train someone. If you don't have to train them on every single software platform, all these guys really, you want all these ERP platforms really are? Processes and databases. That's all they really are. And they just have tons of people who have been trained on how to get to the data. But getting to the data can be simple.
So there would be like the front end business world of us humans that would be declining big time, and there would be this parallel back end of zeros and ones and agents just communicating one with another. And at the center of that, there would be like connecting agents. That in what ecosystem would these connecting agents be, as per se?
Well, we're starting to see what we call the MCPs right now come out. And I think that's what you're looking at. But you have to leverage a UI on the front of it, and you have to have an integrated backend on that MCP. And so any of the MCPs we're seeing now are really, early on, but there's just been a massive amount of interest in them, but you have to tie all that stuff in, and then you have to know who has access, what's the agent doing, who's it communicating, did it work, did it not work? So there's going to be another level of management that's required on agents on multiple tools, and I think that's where the enterprise market is, not just, oh, hey, yeah, we just implemented the Salesforce agent.
Yeah, the UI would be like a dashboard for the human, like here's how many agents I connected together today for you. Here's how much it generated and so forth. But yeah, it's a very. I think there would be multiple connectors. That's for one, and two. Yeah, it would be incredibly complex, right? To build that actual algorithm. What would a connector look like? Is like, oh, here's your goal, and here's what you're paying for right now. Here's the agents that you're paying for, and here's the agents you could connect with. And would it be like pay-per usage, sort of?
Probably. I think that's where you're going to come down to, is transactional side, because I look at it if you look at it from an HR standpoint, as an employee, if I wanted to, we have what's called employee self-service, which really just means call ServiceNow and ask for information for IT, like how do I change my password and stuff like that, right? If there was just on your, the only thing on your desktop was, okay, here's your Word, Microsoft Excel or whatever, but Copilot essentially just said, you just asked Copilot, what's my PTO, or can I take the day off? It would have to talk to Workday, find out, do you have any available time? And then it would have to go through all of these sequences. Now, those sequences are enterprise rules, and you have to have access rights. But to the person asking, they don't care about any of that. So it's up to the IT team to be able to do all that. And that, yes, that eliminates a lot of level 1 and level 2 support, but it also gets your employees what they need faster.
And if employees become agents, managers, is the future that the bottom strata gradually gets eliminated until there's like just one leader that is very good at knowing what they want and managing all these agents, aka the stakeholder and the business owner?
There are certainly use cases for that, but I also think there's still going to be people who need to manage the outputs and inputs and where the logic sits. Because if you do a merger and acquisition, or your business changes, which it does, or you come up with a new product or a new use case, somebody's got to train the system, right? So that doesn't go away. If you have a pretty static environment where, like, I couldn't even name an example, but if you're doing SEO and you do SEO the exact same way with 10 clients and you know the rules, then you just plug a new business in and come up with the same outputs. But if you want to add a new service, then you have to rebuild that logic case. So I think you might have the CEO or the founder who's got a lot of ideas. Someone's still probably selling it because that's still relationship based. So you still have a sales team, and then someone's managing the communication and output of those agents.
Bending my brain here. Last question: why would you be the best person to create that $1 trillion agent connector company?
Well, I think there's a lot of reasons. Number one, I've got 29 years of building HR, conversational AI, and HR backend systems. So in our specific space, and every company has an HR department, if they're larger. So we work on a service that every company needs. It's not like we need Salesforce only usually sells to a company that's got more than 20 sellers, but even an SMB would still need an agent of record if they wanted to communicate to their payroll company. So I've also built enterprise conversational AI for Wells Fargo, as well as Kaiser Permanente, two of the largest, one in banking, one in healthcare. So I've got the chops on the technical architecture side, live in Silicon Valley, so have the ability to get to the funding because that's what it's going to take to build that type of platform. And a lot of times what it takes is team and vision.
John, thanks for today, for giving me all these ideas. Where can people find out more about you?
Easiest on LinkedIn, and it's John Duarte, and you could find me actually just because of SEO, and I'm an old guy. Type in on LinkedIn, best LinkedIn profile.
So that was John Duarte and Charles Cormier for another